When you get your skin exposed to sunlight, your serotonin and your dopamine goes up. So that's why you feel better. And since I like the benefits, I started doing the 2-3 times per week. You have the visible light. On one end, you have the infrared. That's invisible to your eyes, and that's the biggest part of the sunlight. And then you have a little part of sunlight that's called the UV. What was discovered just in recent years is that only 5% of the melatonin is produced in your pineal gland. The other 95% is produced on your skin. We really need infrared as any other nutrient. The same as we need vitamin C, the same as we need protein, we really need sunlight in order to. So want to get younger, want to get more melatonin, get more.
Guti, it's so good to have you on Born Superhuman. I personally got to know you from being at some of these biohacking events and conventions, and I personally use your product, which is why I wanted you to come on here and explain to everybody the importance of red light therapy. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm very happy to share all that I have learned during the last years in my personal journey regarding taking natural sunlight and the benefits of red light and UVB.
Well, tell me then, how did you get into this? Because I found some of the greatest products out there because people themselves had to find a solution. It was never created to make money. This was always created to help fix a physical, emotional, biological issue. So tell us your story a little bit.
Well, basically, I'm 47 years old. I was born during the 1977, and I grew practically in some of the decades that you were taught to try to avoid the sun as much as possible because the sun was dangerous. So basically, in my case, even living in my country, El Salvador, we have lots of sun. I was always putting a lot of these sunscreens that actually now turn out to be very dangerous. But in my case, if you see, for example, picture from me 5-10 years ago, I used to be very pale because I was always afraid of the sun, like most people are. But everything changed when I started getting more educated. And this was triggered because during the pandemic, I had a very big divorce, and that affected me a lot. I got depressed, my vitamin D levels crashed, my testosterone crashed. So I did what most people do is go to the doctor. The doctor gave me testosterone replacement therapy. I start feeling amazing again because my levels were crashed at 270 and they got it back to around 650. So I was like born again. Then I took oral vitamin D and that gave me more energy. And then I got the antidepressants and that lifted my mood. So I was doing better with the help of doctors. But 1 year after the big event happened, I was not happy with me being dependent on antidepressants. For example, if you miss some hours or if you miss a day, you're feeling very, very bad. So your body gets used to it. And also, I didn't like the idea of having these TRT pellets put on my gluteus on my back because it's not natural. And I didn't like the idea of having that intervention. So I started reading because I love reading a lot. And basically, most of the books that I read basically pointed in the same direction. Get sunbaths, get sunbaths, get more light in your eyes, get more light in your skin. And since I have here in my garden a very nice place to take sunbaths, I started taking nude sunbaths. And basically, day number one, then from day number one, I just felt totally uplifted with the energy. I then learned that, for example, when you get your skin exposed to sunlight, your serotonin and your dopamine goes up. So that's why you feel better. And since I like the benefits, I started doing the 2-3 times per week. And I felt better than ever. I started getting some tan in my skin. And then I decided to try to lower the dose with the psychiatrist. and also to lower the dose with the TRT. And to make the story short, 4 months after, I was out of antidepressants. I was my vitamin D levels were at 85, totally natural, and also I was out of TRT, and my testosterone went up even to 680, so a little bit higher. So at the beginning it crashed and then it went up. So to me, sunlight was the best medicine ever. And I was just so surprised that we have been told, or we have been lied for all these decades, to avoid the sun, while we evolve as a human species to take the sun to be part of our health. So basically, I became from someone that tried to avoid the sun to someone that now embraces sunlight, and I've had basically the last years the better health of my life. So I'm just amazed on how sunlight could be the best medicine.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because, again, we've been told over the last lot of years to stay out the sun, put on all these sunscreens, and yet now it's coming to light that a lot of sunscreens are either blocking the vitamin D, or actually, we know that when we put something on our skin, within 26 seconds, it's gone into our bloodstream. And a lot of the chemicals that are being put in, the sunscreens are actually creating more chance of cancer. This is what I heard. And when you look back at the rate of cancer back in the 60s, 50s, when people were out with no protection, and now you look at the rate of cancer now, it's way higher. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell me, what is red light therapy?
Okay, well, basically, if you, for example, you took a device like this, that's to measure the sunlight, and if you put it, let's say, at noon, most people believe that maybe most of the light is visible light, but actually there's some wavelengths that are longer wavelengths that are the ones that give you the heat feeling, and those are the infrared. And the infrared is about 60 to 65% of the energy you're receiving from the sun. So, for example, at the beginning of the day, the infrared would be like 80% of the energy, and the rest will be visible. But mostly, the infrared is the biggest part of sunlight. So, red light therapy, it's basically one of the parts of the infrared, and that gives many, many benefits. So, basically, when you get red light therapy, either from a machine or either from the sun, you're getting energy that basically energizes your cells. So if you have more energy in the cells, your cells stop just being in survival mode and start getting your health back. So that's the simplest way to tell it.
So how does that, sunlight and the heat waves as well, how does that get into your cells?
Okay, if we want to go more technical, everybody has heard of the famous mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Well,
So
actually, not everyone's heard of that. So go back into explain mitochondria, the cells, AT, all the different stuff. What is it that about the cells that drives needs energy to drive our body?
okay, so basically, when you go really small, for example, in a microscope, you get any cell of your body. Inside those cells, there are little organelles that do different activities, like they're a full body. And one of these is called the mitochondria. In each cell, there can be 400, 2,000, even 4,000 different mitochondria. And these little organelles, basically, they get the glucose, or they get the fat, and they transform it to ATP. That's basically the energy that your body can use. So they turn food into energy. But what they found around 20, 25 years ago is that these mitochondria have a chemical that's called cytochrome C oxidases that basically works like a solar panel. So you're taking energy from the sun, they're absorbing it, and that helps your body produce more energy. So in a sense, we are just like plants that take the infrared and convert that into chemical energy.
So how does it get absorbed through the skin into the cell itself?
Well, one of the nice things about the infrared spectrum is because its wavelengths are very big, it can go very deeply. For example, if you take a lamp and you put it at night in your hand, you can see that the light that goes through is the red. And if you did it with infrared, it will go even deeper. So, for example, if you go out and take the sun or use an infrared machine, the infrared waves will go as deep as 4 inches. Even if you go out, the light will go through your skin, in your head, through your skull, and into your brain. And actually, it's needed that you get infrared on your forehead so you have good brain health, and you get some infrared in all your skin so you have good metabolic health. So we really need infrared as any other nutrient. The same as we need vitamin C, the same as we need protein, we really need sunlight in order to thrive.
And so that comes down to the other side. We're told skin cancer, other cancers that are caused, and I know there's a difference between, UVB, UVA, ultraviolet light, all these different lights, even the light that we sit in every day.
Mhm.
The old fluorescent tubes. The
Those are
yeah.
very bad for your health.
So so explain to me the difference then of the good sunlight compared to what we should be avoiding and how that's affecting cancers and other negatives.
Okay. First of all, just to make some numbers, in the 1950s, people were not avoiding the sun, and cancer rate was here. Then 30 years later, people were avoiding the sun, using sunscreens, spending much time indoors, and the cancers basically exploded. So just by making numbers, you can see that's not sunlight the one actually causing cancers, but in fact, and that this is very interesting. There was a study made in Sweden that lasted 20 years. Basically, they were trying to prove that taking more sunlight causes cancer and it's bad for your health. So they followed us, a big number of women. And 20 years later, when they finally collected the data, they found the total opposite. They found, for example, that even women that smoked but took the sun had lower mortality rates than women that didn't smoke but didn't take the sun. So basically, women that were taking the sun were having less cancer rates, were living longer, we're living healthier, and we're even the good effect of sunlight is even greater than the bad effect of smoking. So that's one study that summarizes a lot of what's really happening. They were actually trying to condemn the taking sunlight, but they actually found the opposite.
It's funny what you find out when you're trying to search something and something else comes up. So now let's go to the UVA, UVB, ultraviolet, all the different lights out there. Explain the effect um, of the sunlight.
Okay. One of the things I want to mention, for example, to make things easy, you have the visible light. On one end, you have the infrared. That's invisible to your eyes, and that's the biggest part of the sunlight. And then you have a little part of sunlight that's called the UV. You have the UVA that goes deeper, and the UVB, that's the one that produces the vitamin D. But they're only 4% and half percent. So the UVB is just a little part of the spectrum. But what actually happened, and I want you to explain why they start talking so bad about UV and sunlight. During the 1970s, they did some experiments and they exposed people's skin in vivo to see the effect of UV on the skin, but they put the UV without any infrared. And as you know, in nature, it's basically one part of UV for every 8 parts of infrared. So when they did that, they start seeing that the cells start getting damaged, and that's where they got all the oxidative theory, and that's where they got all the cancer theory. So that's true. If you get ultraviolet alone, like you would do, for example, in a tanning bed, that's bad for you because that's not how you get it in nature. But since nature doesn't make any mistakes, when you get UV with sunlight, you're getting tons of infrared, and the infrared is the one protecting from the side effects, let's call it that way, of UV. So you're getting the benefits of UV without any of the side effects. So that's what got the theory against UV during the 1970s. And that's why you need to avoid taking UV by itself. If you get UV, get it through natural sunlight or get it through a device that combines the UV with infrared.
Fascinating. So one of the things that I just found out, I just did a DNA test with the DNA company. A great guy, Cash Khan, who has actually been on this on Born Superhuman as well.
Yes.
I found out that I have a gene defect from my DNA where I
Mm-hmm.
get vitamin D2, but it doesn't convert to vitamin D3. And then the
Okay.
mutation around the body isn't active, which means I'm not maximizing the potential that I have for energy into my cells levels through the vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of knowledge meant that I was avoiding a vast majority of my body being energized through the vitamin D product. There's a lot of talk about exposing your sun, which I've now learned and read into, to make sure that I'm getting as much of my body exposed to the sun as possible. So wearing my shorts, not wearing a shirt on, going barefoot, walking on the ground. Tell me about the times of days that are the safest or least safe to go out, and what's the effect of getting as much of your body in sunlight compared to just your face?
Okay. Okay, what I'll do is just explain a little bit because people need to know when is the right time, for example, to take the sun, or what's the right time of the year. So, for example, when the sun is very low, that's when you have your free red light lamp. That's what I tell anybody. Don't want to buy a red light lamp? Just go out and take a walk with as little clothing as you want. Early in the morning, when the sun is basically yellow orange, or late at the day, and try to do that every day because that will be the best thing you do for your health because you will get in a lot of infrared. And at that time of the day, you need no sunblock because there's no UVA or UVB. So that's the first thing to know, and that's great for health. And then as the sun rises, for example, when it's getting close to 45 degrees, you get the UVA. The UVA is the one that gives you the tan, and the UVA also causes skin aging, but the infrared counteracts it. But also the UVA has one great benefit that most people don't know about it, and it is that increases nitric oxide. So when you have more nitric oxide, the blood flows better, your heart works less, and your blood pressure stabilizes. So UVA also has benefits. And then as the sun goes up, after it's basically at the top, that's when you get the healthy, and amazing UVB, because UVB is the one that produces the vitamin D. It produces serotonin. It helps with your hormones. So basically, even when I was designing this lamp, the only two benefits I knew about UVB was testosterone, serotonin, and vitamin D. But now, more than a year later, for example, when you get your skin exposed, there are like 25 different metabolites similar to vitamin D that your body's producing. And that's why when you get the sun, you get a lot more benefits that you could ever get by just taking oral vitamin D. So, getting back to the light, when you can only get vitamin D or the UVB when the sun is very up. So, for example, in the United States, if you live north during the summer, it's good because the sun goes up and you can really get a burn. But in winter, the sun always doesn't rise that much, so you never get the UV. So, for example, in most United States or Europe, from basically mid-October to basically April, no matter how much you try, you can never get a UVB because the sun needs to be as high as possible to have the UVB coming. So, for example, what would be the best way to get sunlight? I recommend people to go for a walk early in the morning to get the sunrise and the sunset. That's your infrareds. And then it's not good to go probably when the sun is up because that's too strong. But maybe when the sun would be like at 70-degree angle, that's when you get a good combination of infrared, UVA, and UVB, and you not don't need to overdo it. For example, during World War one of the best medicines that were used in Europe was getting the beds of the wounded to get sunlight, and they discovered it in a very interesting way when hospitals were so full, they had to take the beds outside. And some months later, they found that those people were healing faster. The scars were healing faster. They had a pulmonary infection. They were healing. And they say, like, wow, so let's start getting more people outside. And obviously what they did gradual sunbaths. It's not like you have to go out and get burned, but maybe go the first day and take 5 minutes, then take 10 minutes and do it little by little until your skin starts getting used to it.
So if we look at it, really from sunrise till probably what, 9 o'clock in the morning is probably the best time. We're talking about the summertime at the angle of the sun. And then from 9 o'clock to maybe 10:45, 11 is maybe the best time. And then you want to be out of the sun between 11 and 1:30, and then back in again. Is it that kind of arc?
Actually, for example, the way that I take sunbaths is usually I do it around 11. I do half an hour one side, half an hour the other side, because my skin is already used to the sun. And basically, that's when you get most of the UVB. But I didn't start at 11. I started maybe at 9 in the morning and with little time. But you can go increasing. And the only thing I do, I cover my face because that's what I tell everybody. Sun can be the best benefit in your health, but it's true that it ages the skin in your face. So basically, what I do, I will, if I wanted to use sunscreen, I would use the mineral ones because those are the safer. And whenever possible, the safest way is no sunscreen at all. Just put a big hat and you're done.
Fascinating. So let's break this down really simply. First question, sunburn. What your skin and the internal effects of sunburn as well, because we know it's not good for you.
Yes, always avoid at all costs sunburn because that's what makes it dangerous. For example, it's not the same someone that spends all year round taking some sun so your skin gets used to it than, for example, living in Canada and then going for vacations to the Caribbean and then going crazy with the sun and getting burned. That's what makes sun dangerous. So it is true that sun can increase cancer, some type of cancers. By the way, not melanoma. Sun doesn't affect melanoma as they used to believe, but actually lowers the mortality rate. But what makes sun dangerous is when you get burned. So always start going gradual. And I'm going to give you some tips for people that want to take the sun. First of all, one of the things that make the sun dangerous is eating seed oils.
Sure.
So try to replace seed oils with healthier oils because the seed oils have too many polyunsaturated oils in it, and that gets oxidized with the sun. So most people that stop, for example, taking seed oils and replace it with even lard, that's now been shown to be very healthy, or olive oil or coconut oil, suddenly 6 months after you change your diet, you can take sun without getting burned as easily.
Mm.
So that's advice number one. Advice number two is stop wearing sunglasses because basically the production of melanin starts through your eyes when you get UVA through your eyes that sends the signal to your brain to tell the cells in your body to start producing more melanin. So if you, for example, went one day with so very strong sunglasses, you will be more susceptible to getting a sunburn because your skin won't be producing melanin because the triggering of the melanin it starts in the eye. And also it's good for your eyes to actually get UVA. It's been now shown that when you get more UVA in your eyes, the the probability of developing myopia lower. So that's one of the reasons why people now are wearing more glasses than ever because we spend too much time indoors with artificial light and we're not getting the UVA. And the other recommendation would be don't just go at noon because that's not the way that we used to do it. What we used to do is to wake up by the sun without sunglasses, be exposed to the all the healthy infrared light. That's the one that's protecting your skin. So when you will finally get the harsh light from noon, you would be protected. And then at the end of the day, you will be nourished again with the infrared. So, for example, when I go to the beach, I go for a walk early in the morning, 45 minutes to get the infrared. Then at noon, maybe I spend 30, 45 minutes. And then I go inside and then go back at the end of the day. So that would be like combining the best amount of time exposed at the right times of the day.
Very interesting. Let me just explain this for people as well, because if you haven't heard of melanin, you may confuse
Hmm.
melatonin,
Ah,
which
yes.
which is very different. Melanin is part of the process that helps you tan, stops you getting sunburnt.
Hmm.
And the effect on the skin is so important. Melatonin is what helps you go to sleep at night, which is to do with your circadian rhythm that we'll talk about in a minute. So I just want to just
Hmm.
clarify that for anyone watching. Um, and then you're talking to someone that grew up in England, and when the sun came out, my nickname was Lobster. I could actually go to a yacht site in America, and we'd run out there with the baby oil on, and you just burn and fry. I remember one year my nose peeled 13 times. I'm not proud of it, but it was,
Wow.
we're never in the sun, and I have English skin. Um,
Hmm.
and the effect of living in America, certainly coaching soccer and being out in the sun, caused my, skin on my face to certainly age, uh, maximize its potential. So let's break this down. Tell me the effects, because we've got red light, then we've got UVA, we've got UVB. Tell me the benefits of the red light early morning.
Okay. So if you take red light or basically the sunlight in the morning, you'll get tons of anti-aging benefits. For example, red light by itself or infrared by itself, if one of the best things you can do to get younger looking skin. And for example, in my case, I've been using red light. I first bought a panel, then I used mine, and I've been using it for about a year and a half. And I have pictures from my face from 6 years ago, and I have pictures now, and you can see me now. And I basically, my skin looks healthier and younger now than 6 years ago. So that's one of the proof of how red light therapy and infrared can work. By the way, some people call it red light, some people call it infrared. It's basically the same because in the sun you get the red and the infrared, and all of the lamps that you can buy also get the red and the infrared. The difference is that the infrared you cannot see it, but it's basically it's very similar to the frequencies of red, but they come together. So another story, when I was starting to go into the rabbit hole of learning the infrared, I'm a photographer and I've been during the last 20 years, and I was like, how could light do all that? So I was an skeptic. I believe, for example, in UV. That's how I started taking the sun baths. I did them for the UV side. I didn't know about the infrared. But then, since I bought a panel, I said, okay, I'll try to do an experiment. So I had my dog that had arthritis. So I put the panel in a crate that I bought through Amazon and said, okay, it said that it improves with pain, with arthritis. So give it a try. I wasn't really not expecting anything. And 2 weeks later, the dog was running. And I said, like, okay. The dog doesn't have the placebo effect. The doctor said that this was going to be her case, and now she's running. So that's what got me interested into the world of infrared because making your skin look younger, that's easier to believe than basically making somebody heal from arthritis. That sounds more complicated. So I started reading a lot, and basically infrared light can help with almost anything that is related to aging because basically when you're born, your cells are at 100% producing energy. And as you grow older, they're 70, 60, 50. For example, diabetes is a metabolic disease. Alzheimer is a metabolic disease. And what you do with red light is basically getting more energy to the cells through very complicated chemical processes. And if you go maybe from 40 back to 80%, then magic starts happen. For example, the anti-aging effect on the skin, it's because you start producing more collagen. And also, there's one very interesting molecule that you mentioned, and that's melatonin. And melatonin, next to glutathione, is one of the two most potent antioxidants in the body. But what was discovered just in recent years is that only 5% of the melatonin is produced in your pineal gland. The other 95% is produced on your skin, inside your mitochondria, when basically you get red light exposure. So 95% of your melatonin is produced in the cells when you get infrared. So want to get younger, want to get more melatonin, get more infrared.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's amazing. People don't realize the biggest organ on our body is our skin. So obviously, if all the organs in our body are working, we forget our skin is working at all times. So we've covered the red light or infrared, whichever you want to call it. Now, what's the benefits and negatives of UVA?
Okay, UVA, the negative, if skin aging, that's definitely one of them because it goes deeper than UVB. So skin aging by of UVB, people cannot deny it, but you can get the benefits of UVA if you increase your exposure to infrared. Or the other way around, you can get a very bad UVA if you do UVA by itself. So basically, the biggest benefit of UVA would be nitric oxide production. And for example, there are many studies that show that people that take sunbaths basically have a lower heart disease and lower blood pressure than people that cannot. And I don't know if most people know it, but the biggest cause of death is cardiovascular disease. So, and it's caused and it's risen a lot during the last 50 years because people now don't get the UVA because they're spending most of the time indoors. And also, if you look at data of people that live near the equator, the amount of cancers and the amount of heart disease is a lot lower than if you go up north. And one of the reasons would be less sun exposure, less UVA. So the biggest benefit of the UVA, it would be nitric oxide production. Even Viagra, for example, works by increasing nitric oxide.
Brilliant. So it makes it easy to understand. Now let's go on to UVB. Positive,
Okay,
negative effect of UVB.
okay. The negative of UVB, if you get too much, you get burned. It's very difficult. You get burned with UVB, but with UVA. But with UVB, if you get too much, you get burned. So, for example, you could be every day for the rest of your lives at 9 in the morning, and you will never get burned because it doesn't have UVB. But if you go in the equator at noon in the mountains, you can get a burn in 10 minutes because the UVB is so strong. So UVB is amazing. Just need to be careful not to overdo it because you're always trying to avoid getting burned. That would be basically the bad side of UVB because even most cancers are related with UVA, but not with UVB. And now let's go with the good side. Benefit number one that most people know about is vitamin D. They call it vitamin sunshine because when you get your skin exposed, your skin produces vitamin D. And actually, vitamin D shouldn't be called a vitamin because it's actually a hormone. What happened is that when people in England were having rickets during the uh, early last century, they said like, how can we help them? And they gave them cod liver oil, and they got cured. So they says there must be a vitamin inside cod liver oil that will help, and they isolated vitamin D. But around 15 years later, there was another scientist that discovered that you can produce it naturally. So it's not actually a vitamin, but a hormone. Because to be considered a vitamin, your body shouldn't produce it. And we produce vitamin D. And vitamin D is, to many scientists, the most important vitamin because it's basically connected with 3% of your DNA. So imagine how many different chemical process vitamin D triggers. So, for example, if somebody's having depression, vitamin D helps. If somebody's having diabetes type 1 or 2, vitamin D helps. So what changes is that 70 years ago, people considered that vitamin D was just needed for calcium uptake. But then they discovered during the last 30 years that vitamin D is present in more than 3,000 chemical processes in the body. So that's why the amount they consider to be your suggested daily intake is not as it should right now. Depending on the country, it's like 600 IUs to 800 IUs. But now most specialists are recommending 5,000 at least.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it makes me think back to what the whole world went through with COVID. We were isolated, we stayed indoors, especially, our beautiful aging community of seniors that really were locked into rooms. They avoided that whole ability or advice to get out in the sun. I remember when it first came out, they were like, oh no, sun kills COVID and all the different stuff. And they said, well, actually, heat is what kills COVID. And then it didn't work out. And we were getting so much different information. But it seems to me with what you're saying that if people got out into the sun, the body has its own natural ability to support the healing. I'm not going to say it's the fix, but certainly your body's stronger with it.
Yes, definitely. For example, one of the best indicators you could do in a blood work to try to see your chances of getting a complication with COVID was vitamin D level. If your vitamin D was in optimal levels, basically you were on the safe side. But if you were low, like more than 50% of Americans, then you were on the danger zone. So, that's very interesting. And one fact that most people don't know is that, for example, in the United States, up to 40% of people have gastrointestinal problems. And if you have a gastrointestinal problem, you could be taking all the vitamin D in the world, but you will not absorb it. The only way for you to get it is basically to get shots or get the sun.
So let's talk about our seniors, our aging population that have done so much for us to give us the life we have today. And now there's a lot of health issues coming on. It's coming from our quality of food or lack of quality of food. It's coming from what's in our water, all the different contaminants, the inflammation coming through the gut to the body. And yet, one of the things that strikes me is how little they go outside. In fact, I was working with a lady recently who literally spends 24 hours a day inside and never goes outside. What is the effect that would be positive for the aging generation if they are getting that sunlight, or I should say, the effects of the sunlight on their body?
Okay. There's one data that says that right now in the United States, people spend 92% of their time indoors. And maybe 100 years ago, it was 50% out and 50% in. So that's a really dramatic change. And it's not just how much we spend inside, but the quality of the light we have inside. For example, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you had the incandescent bulb, the one that now they made illegal basically because they said that for energy saving reasons, they replaced it with LED. And it was true. The regular light bulb incandescent was inefficient, but it was 90% healthy infrared. So when you were using those bulbs, you were getting healthy light because it was 90% infrared. And as you know, that's great for all metabolic health. And modern LEDs on the other side have basically zero infrared, they have zero ultraviolet, and they have a peak on the blue. And getting too much blue light can basically disrupt your circadian rhythm. So it's not just how much time you spend indoors or outdoors, but the quality of light you have inside. And obviously, if you go outside, miracle things will happen. And that's why I will try to encourage most people to do is not stay inside, but even for the elderly population, those are the people that have the lowest numbers of vitamin D. And that's why also they have more, for example, hip fractures because their bones are not doing good. So I will consider doing a combination of taking more natural sunlight, but also I'm not against oral vitamin D. I'm just saying that most people cannot absorb it or it doesn't bring the same benefits as natural sunlight. But it's actually for people that are doing very bad on their vitamin D to get their vitamin D levels a little bit high before they start getting more sun exposure because their skin will not be prepared. But if people over 60 are the ones that basically would be needing to get more infrared from the sun, to get more UV from the sun, and that's my recommendation.
So what would be the positive health effects that they could feel then? Let's just say somebody has been going in the sun half an hour a day, which is literally just going to the car, getting in the car, going, driving, walking into the mall or whatever. What are the effects that they could expect to see by increasing their sun exposure?
Okay, the first thing that I will feel, and I recommend that they walk outside without sunglasses. Even this prescription block UVA and UVB. So what you need to do early in the morning is buy. They're actually manufacturing now some glasses that let the UVA and UVB in because now they found that it's actually good for you. And when we've been taking it out, so the first thing you will feel is a change in your mood because our circadian rhythm is triggered in the morning by getting lots of sunlight in your eyes. So what you will feel instead of needing the coffee, instead of feeling sleepy, if you get enough sun in your eyes, basically you will feel all the energy that you're probably missing. For example, this is another story. My father, he lives in El Salvador. We have lots of sunshine. And basically he was telling me like, Gerardo, I'm feeling depressed. I have low energy. What vitamin can you give me? And I start talking to him. And basically, he's spending all his day inside with a bad LED light that's even underpowered. And he's on his iPad. And when he finally goes outside, he goes to these totally black eyeglasses. So he's never getting enough sunlight through his eyes. So I told him, okay, I can have it fixed. Go each day without your glasses and have at least a 30-minute walk outside so you could get the light into your brain and that will trigger the whole cycle of the day and you will start feeling better. And he did it, and 3 days later he was like, wow, I feel so much energy just by increasing exposure in your eyes to natural sunlight. That would be number one. That's why, for example, they're selling those SAD lamps, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, because if you don't get at least 10,000 lux of energy of light in your eyes, you will never be awake. And if you're not awake during the day, you will not be sleepy during the night. So one of the most important things is the light darkness cycle or day and night cycle. You need to get as much light during the day and as much darkness during the night.
So let me bring this up before we move on, because I want to talk about the circadian rhythm that's so critical
Yes.
for our health. We know that sleep, which is governed by circadian rhythm, is critical for our overall health, but certainly brain health. I remember when you were speaking at one of the conventions that I was attending, you talked about your father. I'm going to let you tell this story because he created this lamp, better than sunlight, better than sun, that he started using. And I'm not going to go into the visuals. I know there's a lot of men out there, and I've experienced this myself by using your red light therapy, suffering from testosterone decline, getting replaced with estrogen, losing the manliness that we are born with, which is energy, muscle strength, vitality, even your effervescence in life. So,
Yes.
story about your grandfather, and you can go into it. I'm just talk about it. I think there's a lot of men that are, 50 and over, 40 and over now that are suffering from ED that could learn from this story and how it can help them naturally. Go ahead.
Yes, well, basically, I designed this lamp. I'm just going to tell why was the reason that I designed the lamp first, and then the other story. Basically, even in my country, there are some days when we have a week of rain, even 2 weeks of rain, and I cannot take the sunlight. So I said, okay, I'll go and buy one machine that gives you the infrared and the UV in Amazon. So when I cannot get sunlight, I can get it. And to my surprise, it didn't exist. So I was just amazed at how you cannot buy a lamp that gives you a sunbath. So I decided to make my own. That's the reason why I decided to make the lamp, because that would be the product that I would I would buy even living in El Salvador. And now the story of my father. When I made this lamp, my father was a skeptic. So I gave him a lamp, and I said him use it in your chest, and then you can use it down under, because there's a study that says that you can produce more testosterone when you get the UV in your genitals. And he said like, let's give it a try because that's my son's product, whatever. And basically, after 2 weeks using the lamp, he gives me a call and he says, Gerardo, I have to tell you, I'm having some side effects from using the lamp. And I was like, maybe he used it for too long and he got a little sunburn or something. And he said, I'm having morning erections again. And I was like, okay, that's a great side effect. So obviously, when you get more testosterone, when you get more nitric oxide, you start getting erections back again. And one of the things that this lamp does not have the UVA, but it has the amber color. That's the one that gives the orange. For example, I will turn this on and it looks a little bit different than most red light lamps. If you can see, it's more like the color of sunset and sunrise than regular red light that are just red. And that's because I decided to add this orange color because that's the wavelength that increases more nitric oxide. So you get the the nitric oxide with UVA, but you can also get it with this amber color. So it's also helping you improve the nitric oxide. So that was his side effect, getting finally more, getting again the morning erections.
It's fascinating because I've spoken to a lot of people, and so many people encourage for that reason, as far as full body health, walking down the beach naked sunbathing, which has its kind of like do, that's not kind of cool because in society we've been taught that we've got to stay, covered, which I do agree. I don't want to be walking down the street and seeing everyone naked, but there's
If you go to Munich to the British Garden, you're going to see people just nude sunbathing in the center of the city.
really, and I guess it's again big, for me personally, because D2 isn't getting inverted to D3, it's not traveling around. I want to get as much exposure of my skin as possible because it's not traveling from a small area into a bigger area. But at the time, that's the beautiful thing with your creation is that you can use it in the safety of your own home, correct?
Yes, basically, when I developed this lamp 1.5 years ago, there was a trend in the internet that was called tanning your balls. And basically, it's on getting sunlight not just on your chest, on your face, on your arms, on your legs, but on the part that usually you have it covered, because if not, you go outside, you'll go to jail. So it's not socially accepted. So basically, this lamp can give you the infrared and the UVB in your genitals without having the trouble of not having a place where you can take nude sunbaths. So in my case, whenever possible, I do nude sunbaths, and when I don't have the time, or when I'm traveling because I take it with me, or when there's a bad weather, I just use my lamp.
So what's the positive effect then for women? Because obviously, if it's increasing testosterone in men, what would it be doing for women that would be using this?
Okay. One of the things that I discovered in this journey is that when you think hormones and women, you think estrogen. But women do actually have more estrogen than men. But what I didn't know is that women also have more testosterone than estrogen. So even women rely more on testosterone than they rely on estrogen. And what happens? There's a study that proved that when you get sunlight, especially well, not especially, actually only the UVB on your skin, that triggers a molecule that's called the P53 that sends signals to your brain, and then you start producing two hormones that trigger the production of testosterone. So and when women have better testosterone, they also have a better balance of estrogen because testosterone is converted to estrogen by an enzyme that's called aromatase. So especially in women that are having problem with their hormones, get more sunlight or use my lamp. That would be the advice because, well, for example, nowadays we're getting a lot of hormonal disruptions more than ever. It's caused one of the reasons is because we're not having good night's sleep. If you want to improve your hormones, the cheapest and best remedy would be have a good night's sleep. The other would be definitely take more sun. And the third would be look at the labels of the products you're putting on your skin because, for example, most beauty products or even suntan lotions are filled with hormonal disrupting chemicals. So, for example, as men, if you go to the superman and see the labels and start looking for the labels, you will find like, okay, this disrupts testosterone. This disrupts and basically all the chemicals that we put into your skin are being absorbed. So that would be the advice. Take more sun, sleep better, and watch out for what you're putting on your skin.
Brilliant. So let's jump on to, as you say, sleep.
Yes.
Circadian rhythm. In our world, we hear about it all the time. But in the general population, where we see so much sickness going on, and with my specialty on the brain, and I love the power the brain has, sleep is critical. And we know the sunlight affects, or our timing, I should say, our habits around getting up, going to sleep, the change of circadian rhythm, which we also see with jet lag changing different time zones, affects us dramatically. Go ahead and explain the circadian rhythm and how sunlight and your device can help align that.
Okay. So basically, is a clock, actually many clocks in your body that tells them what's the time to wake up. For example, when you wake up, you start producing cortisol. And the inverse happens at night when you're getting asleep. The cortisol is already going down and you start melatonin going up. And also there are some cleaning processes you do in your body while you're being asleep. Also, you're basically getting all of the bad chemicals out of your brain when you're sleeping. So the circadian rhythm is basically how you're connected with nature in a way that during the day you're awake because of the light, and during at night you're getting basically sleeping well because you have darkness. And one thing that happens is the following. Most people nowadays spend most of their time indoors, so they never have enough light during the day, and at night that we're supposed to have darkness, now you have the big screen with a lot of blue light, or you're spending hours and hours in front of your phone that's full of blue light. And basically what happens is that during the day you don't have enough light to be awake, and during the night you have too much blue light to be asleep.
What's the
So
effect of blue light? Tell me about blue light while we're on the topic.
okay, for example, these glasses, as you can see, they're orange. These are also blue blockers. So what happens? Blue light is not actually bad. It's bad when you have it at the right time of the day. So, for example, there are some photoreceptors in your eyes that react to blue light, and uh, and that's been going on for millions of years because they're the one of the most simple organisms ever had that receptor to blue light to have their own circadian rhythm. So what happens when you have blue light? That sends the signal to your brain, to the hypercharismatic nucleus, I believe is the name, and that makes all the chemistry in your body to be awake. So blue light makes you awake. So when you go outside at noon, it's filled with blue light, but also with all of the healthy lights. The problem that, for example, if I took one spectrometer and did the test with an LED, it has a big spike of blue light. It has no infrared and has very red. So the problem is that if when you're using LEDs at your home at night, you're putting too much blue light on you. And what's your brain thinking? It's thinking, okay, it's noon. I don't need to go to sleep. So you're never producing the melatonin you need. And also, if you get too much blue light on your skin without the infrared, that's also oxidizing your skin and you're aging faster. So people that spend all the day indoors with blue light without infrared, that's the perfect recipe for skin aging. And also, if you get too much blue light in your eyes without the infrared, that's also aging your sight. So basically, the recommendations would be get back to nature during the day. Try to spend as much time with natural light, and during the night, avoid white LEDs as much as possible. Now you can buy, for example, lights that you can turn red during the night. Avoid too much screen. Avoid using too much your cell phone, and you can put it also in a mode that goes amber and has less blue light, so you can sleep better.
Yeah, so with the circadian rhythm and the ability to obviously align our bodies, from what I understand, when you look back at our ancestors and even back as far as the caveman, but going through everything from the pilgrims or whoever it was, we'd get up and work at sunrise and go to sleep or be living by candles after sunset. And the brain health, the ability to be able to clean the brain out, align everything, and prepare for the next day does come from our sleep. When our circadian rhythm is off, how could we use Better Than Sun, your device, to align our circadian rhythm? Because it's more than just the light, it's the discipline as well. And telling ourselves, what would you advise there for help people realign their rhythm to be able to sleep and function best during the day?
Mhm. My best advice during the day is try to get as much natural light in your eyes as possible. And for example, my lamp can help with that too, because for example, it's like taking a sunset, a sunrise or a sunset. So usually, what I recommend people with my lamp is to try to make the habit of taking a shower and then using the lamp. How will that work? For example, the color orange is one of the most uplifting emotional colors there are for creativity. Also, you're getting a very powerful light. This is not giving blue. It will be, for example, for waking up better if we added the blue one, but only with the high intense light you're getting from this, you're basically telling your body, like, okay, it's sunrise. Start getting ready. And also, you'll start getting the UVB on your skin. And when that happens, basically, you start aligning more your circadian rhythm. And also another way you could use this is turn off during the night the lights and use this to give some natural infrared plus red light instead of using the lights up that just give you the bad. And also there are some users that are basically working in their office and put the light in the healing mode, the infrared, so they can counteract the bad lighting they have in their office. That's totally lacking the infrared. So that will work. And for example, there's one study I read that says that just in the United States, there are 12,000 cases of cancer in women related to night shift work. Because when you're doing the night shift, you're basically disrupting your whole system. And that could be solved if we could improve our exposure to good light.
So effectively, if they're working at nighttime, they could have that lamp on the desk next to them or in their environment, and they'll start getting the benefits as if they were out during the day.
Yes. Also, for example, this lamp is basically designed to be used as a sunbath lamp. So that will give help. And we're also developing another product that will have the complete spectrum of light for your eyes. So they're not like competing products, but one is for your ambient, for your eyes, for your circadian rhythm. And this would be for taking a sunbath to help improve your hormones. So we're also working on that.
How would somebody avoid getting sunburned? Because obviously you could go in front of that for too long and get sunburned still. What do you guys have as a safety mechanism there?
Okay, basically the problem is with the sun is that not most people are not using something like this to see how strong the sun is. So some days the sun can be very strong, the others can be little, or if you move from one place to the other, you don't know the sun. The good thing about this lamp is that it always has the same power. So you can dose it the right way. For example, in my case, I'm Fitzpatrick type 3. In the instructions, you can read a lot to see what's the right program to use it. But for example, for my skin type, it's P3. It's 5 minutes. So I start with the P3 and then I wait 6 hours to see if my skin got a little pink. If it's got a little pink, then it's in the perfect amount and you keep it that way until you don't stop getting pink. That means that your solar callus has gotten up and you need a little bit more. And if you get a little too red, that means that's too strong for you to lower it the next day. So you can have the perfect balance. And also to make this safer, because there's already one lamp in the market right now that works with vitamin D. Some of the complaints that people were having is that they were getting burned, and it was the users getting too close. So also one of the things that we did with this product is we added a sensor like the ones on drones that help them from basically getting crashed. So this measures the distance from the person standing in front. You should be, for example, around 15 to 20 inches. So if you get too close, it will pause the timer, and also the UVB will shut off. You will still be receiving the infrared because you can never get too much infrared, basically, but that will protect you from getting too close and getting a burn. So it's all been designed to be really simple. So if you can see it, only 3 buttons. Basically, just put, for example, for my skin, it would be the P3 here. Or if I want to get the anti-aging effects of the red light, just the H, turn it on. So it's been designed so anybody, even the people that cannot use smartphones because they feel it too complicated, I designed this as simple as possible for anyone.
That's brilliant. One of the things that I know, different skin colors are affected differently by the sun. And so, I know this would be fantastic back in Europe because half the year is, if not more. I mean, England this year, I think, had 48 weeks of cloud. Right. I know it's some of the rays coming through the clouds, but it's not the full effect. And certainly you can get burnt because you're not aware that the strength of the sun. But for example, down in Africa, still have to have the right sunlight. So if there's someone that's of a darker skin color, can your machine adapt to that?
Yes, basically, my machine has the same power. What changes is the time. For example, if you were an albino or a redhead, you would use the P1. The P1 is just 3 minutes. The first minute, it's basically just red light therapy because it's preparing your skin. Then on minute number one, it kicks the UV plus the infrared. And then at the end, it has also the infrared. So I designed this to protect your skin, mimicking the natural cycle of the sun. So the P1 would be just 1 minute of UV, but 3 minutes total. For example, with somebody that would be like most people in England, you would need to start with the P2. That's 4 minutes. With someone that would be Mediterranean, that would be the P3. But for example, for an African skin color, with somebody that has very dark color, you would probably need the P8, the P9, or the P10. So the darker your skin, the more light you need to be on the healthy side.
Brilliant. I guess that's why when I go visit Africa, it's hot down there and there's a lot of sun.
And you know one thing? That's one of the reasons why African Americans have higher diabetes and many other diseases because their skin evolved for sunlight in Africa. But now they're living in different sunlight conditions and they cannot make enough vitamin D or they cannot take enough UVB from where they are. So this would be, for example, especially healthy for people that have darker skin colors but are not living where they naturally evolve because there's more sunlight there. And then in England, for example, imagine somebody going from Nigeria to England. You will measure their vitamin D levels and they will be totally destroyed because they cannot get enough light.
It's fascinating because we don't really think about that as we, travel from different countries. I've been fortunate to live in 7 different countries. And of course, my whole body is changing relative to the environment that I'm in. We don't really
Hmm.
think sunlight's just sunlight. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It changes.
Or for example, one interesting fact, why is there so much cancer in Australia? Most of the people that are having cancer are people with Fitzpatrick 1, Fitzpatrick 2, that were naturally from Europe, Northern Europe, for example, English people. And you have some amount of UV, very little amount of UV during the year. And then you go to Australia, where you have high numbers of UVB all year around. So basically, it's the opposite of taking a black person to England. You're taking someone from England to a place with some overexposure of UVB, and the skin has not adapted or evolved to that amount of UV. So you always need to put the right amount of UV for everybody, not too much.
And so what you're saying there is really you got to go with a slow integration of sun exposure. So if someone went from England to Australia and they go out in the sun every day, no protection and overexposed, that can create cancerous effects. However, if they went out, half an hour a day for the first week, and the second week an hour a day, and the third week an hour and a half, and they built up slowly, would the skin naturally build, would the body naturally build a connection with the sun that wouldn't have the same effect?
Well, for example, you can never overcome genetics. So somebody that's your skin color, don't matter how hard you try, it will never have the natural protection of somebody that's very dark skin. So you can improve your resistance to sun, but never get it to a point where you haven't evolved from it. So basically, if somebody is coming from England to Australia or you have white skin type and from Australia, try just to get the right amount of light, but never overdo it. One other interesting fact that I've learned getting into this rabbit hole is because the once you learn, you want to learn more. Is, for example, to my surprise, what are some of the countries with the highest vitamin D deficiencies of the world? Just give a guess.
I'm gonna have to say Russia.
Russia, it's in the middle. It's a little bit like Southern Europe. It's not doing that bad. To my surprise, it's Dubai, Emirates, Iran, and all of those countries in the Middle East. And I'm like, how can that be? And then if you think about it, it's totally easy. First of all, during summer, they have tons of UVB, but it's too hot for people to be outside enjoying the sun. So when they finally have the UVB, they are not taking it because it's too hot. And the second thing of it's because they're always covering their whole body. So in Dubai, in Emirates, the deficiency rate is 84%.
Wow.
So people that live in hot places are also some of the people that could benefit from my lamp. So if you live in a place that gets too cold during the winter or too hot during the summer, you'd be a perfect candidate to get in a lamp that can help you with your UVB.
Makes total sense. 'Cause I remember when I was performing in Las Vegas in Angelo.
Ah, yes, you were.
Yeah, and it was 100 and something degrees during the summer, and you'd literally go from inside, run to the car, into the air conditioning, run into the hotel, stay in there the whole time. You didn't want to go. It was 120. I remember playing golf in 126-degree weather. You didn't want to do it
Hmm.
too often. And then the last 5 days out here in Los Angeles, we've had, 105 plus for 5 days straight. It's true. We
Wow.
stayed inside the whole time, and you go out in the evening, and even then it's still in the 90s. So makes total sense what you just said.
Yes, so imagining living in Vegas. In summer, you have the UVB, but it's too hot, so you cannot not go out. And during winter, that's not UVB. So for people living in Las Vegas, you will just have a little window, maybe between in May or maybe in late September, early October, to comfortably have the light situation where you have UVB and you're not either getting burned or cold.
Yeah, and as you've already explained very well through this talk, the effects of losing the benefits, um, depression to testosterone to tiredness to poor sleep to energy deprivation. It's really critical.
Yes, and for example, in the case of depression, just get your vitamin D levels up to optimal levels. That would be from 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. And that's one other advice I want to give everybody everybody watching this podcast. Measure your vitamin D levels because you cannot correct what you don't know where you're standing at. So probably, for example, seen friends of mine like, and they say like, no, I'm doing perfect. And even in El Salvador, they had 15 nanograms per milliliter where the minimum should be 40 and the optimum should be around 70, 80, 90. So right now, for example, you could just buy online through Amazon or to our webpage one home kit, just take a drop of blood, ship it, and then you'll receive an email with the information, and that will give you the information to see how bad you're doing. And also, when if you're doing bad, don't try to solve it just with vitamin D because vitamin D cannot give you the whole benefits of the sun. Make that measurement just your reference on how you're doing getting sunlight. If you're doing bad, it means get more sunlight. If you're doing great, then let's keep doing the same.
I got a couple of last questions for you, and it's been enlightening. And I know anybody that's watched this will have learned, gained so much knowledge for their own health, which is what I'm all about. Um, People that have neurological disease, for example, MS, is it dangerous for them to be using your product or get red light therapy?
Multiple sclerosis?
Yes.
No, actually, one of the multiple sclerosis as an autoimmune disease, it's all linked, and I'm going to explain how it works. Basically, when you have autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis, it all starts in the gut. So basically, there should be a barrier in the gut that won't let any of the things inside your colon, for example, get inside the bloodstream. But when you get leaky gut, all of those bad things get into your bloodstream, and then you start an autoimmune response. Multiple sclerosis is one of these diseases, but there are many. And what happens when you get your vitamin D levels higher? You work against leaky gut. And when you have less leaky gut, all of the autoimmune response go down. So that's why one of the best ways to help with multiple sclerosis, with psoriasis, with rheumatoid arthritis is to get your vitamin D at optimal levels. And the best way to do that is basically to combine oral vitamin D and take in the sun. So with multiple sclerosis, UVB would be, and vitamin D would be one of the best medicines to counteract it.
So really, like, if we look at the basics of it, we're designed to benefit from the sun. Over time, we've negated our ability to, or fear of being sun. And as a result, as you said, I love a saying that Cash said, which was the DNA you're born with is the DNA that you'll die with. The same with your, you know, physiological body, neurological body biological setup, if we're not serving how it's created, it's going to have a weakness. And so it comes down to what you're saying. The sun is critical for our health. We just need to do it smart and do it right and avoid the burn and get the right amount depending on our heritage, our skin color, and what we're designed for.
Yes, totally. And eh, basically, let's go back to nature. Let's go back to basics. Because, for example, right now, one of the trends that everybody's talking about is that you can predict someone's health by looking at their microbiome. And now it's been proven that when you get higher levels of vitamin D, you get a better microbiome. But even better, when your skin gets more UVB, your microbiome diversity gets bigger. And that translates into lower autoimmune diseases and basically higher response to any disease that you could be getting. So getting UVB for your skin would be basically like a vitamin. And that's actually, for example, last week I was talking in the Bio Bash and I did a conference and it was called Vitamin UVB, the missing ingredient. And that's because it's actually not a vitamin, but it creates so many different chemicals in your body that help with so many different pathways. It should be considered something basically needed for life, at the same as infrared.
Is there any studies that have been done that show using red light therapy or getting the right amount of sunlight has a direct effect on the longevity in your life?
Many, 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 many of them. Basically, at any age, getting more sunlight decreases your all-cause mortality by 38%. And that's just one study. But for example, now that I've been doing these presentations and also working for my blog in my webpage, mytolux.com, the amount of studies you can find is overwhelming. Just for example, regarding infrared light, there are more than 6,000 studies of all the different benefits. If you put UVA, you'll find not 6,000, but dozens of studies, and also with UVB. For example, UVB studies helping with diabetes type 1, diabetes types 2, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, vitiligo, and it's just overwhelming. And for example, if you go to the dermatologist and somebody has psoriasis or vitiligo, what will be one of his cures? To give UV therapy for your skin. So why not just take it from sunlight?
So if you're talking about up to 38%, that means if our life expectancy was to be 100, we're looking at people living to about 62. Instead, that's the dynamic effect of sunlight and the therapy that you can get. So how expensive is it? For example, your device, how expensive is it?
Okay, right now the price of my device, we tried to make it totally accessible because now they've just launched a similar device in the market that's $7,000 or $8,000, so that's crazy. So the price for our device is $799. And we have right now a special that you also be receiving a free vitamin D test. But I'm going to share with you one link so you can help your audience get a 10% discount so they can benefit from it. And this unit is made to last, so it's not like the other lamp that has fluorescent that you can break it and you have to change it. This will basically last 50,000 hours, so that's a lifetime. And we also just launched, you haven't seen that one, a floor stand. So basically you can remove the feet that you have here. Also, it folds like this, so it's very compact, but you can use it in your floor stand. So you can use it on your couch. You can use it on your bed. You can use it in clinics, and it's very compact and lightweight. So that's a new product we just launched.
Well, it's, I think that's great. And the reason I was asking about life expectancy, when you break that down, so let's just say, it's $800. We're saying thank you for the discount for the people that are watching as well. Um, you take that 365 days a year, 716 days in 2 years, and now 718 days, right? 356. I just messed that up. So 712 days. I knew I get it right. 712 days. That's basically $1 a day for 2 years for health, especially combating bad weather, inability to get outside, recovery from sickness. And then after that, it becomes free. So $1 a day for 2 years, and then it's free for the rest of your life is pretty dynamic for the health effect. You think you go to the doctor, you go a couple of times on things that you might have been able to avoid by having your UVA, UVB in the correct amount, the red light therapy, the infrared treatment as well. It's priceless.
And you know what's very funny? Then that, for example, the other day, a friend of mine told me, "Please come to our home, and I will have some friends, and you can show the product." And I was talking vitamin D and all the different hormonal benefits and so on, and people are like, "Wow, wow!" And then I said, "And if you use this in the healing mode, you can look younger in 2 months." And they, "I want one! I want one!"
All about the look,
So,
right?
so people are more concerned about the looks than even with their health. But the good thing is that this is amazing for skin health. So just give it a try. Use it for 2 months, take a before and after picture. And if you really use it the way it should, you will clearly see a difference in the quality of your skin because it helps with wrinkles. Also, it helps with photo aging. Those sunspots you start getting, it will help reverse them. So you don't need to buy one of those masks or another panel because this will work also as a red light therapy device.
And how long does that take? Say, for example, someone says, "Hey, I want to use it on my skin." You say 2 months, you'll see a dramatic effect. How long is it every day? Is it 6 days a week, or how many minutes a day?
If you, for example, if we put the the H mode lasts 10 minutes. Yeah, and you can see it's very strong. So what I actually tell people to do is to do something like this because they're exposing their face, they're exposing their neck, and they're exposing their hands, and that's usually where you want to get the better skin because that's where you usually see the aging. So my recommendation would be use it 5 times a week 10 minutes, and in 2 months you will see a drastic change. And then when you get the right level, basically what you could be doing is just using it for 5 minutes 3 times a week to keep the benefits.
Right. So when you said the right level, you're saying when you look the way you want to look, or you get to the youngest that your skin can go back to. Now it's just maintenance rather than reversal.
Yes, also red light therapy helps with hair growth. For example, it's even more effective to women than to men because in men it's usually more related to DHT and hormones, but it also helps. But for example, thinning hair in women, it's incredibly restored with the use of red light therapy. For example, in my case, I don't have problem with my hair, but where I've seen it, I had some spaces on my beard that were like not dense, and now it's full.
So for a lady who has hair loss coming in, they would just put it the correct distance away on the H on the healing side, or would it be on to be on the H and then keep the right distance away and just let it be on there for 10 minutes a day and it would help start regrowing the hair follicles?
Yes, for hair, you must use it for 6 months because the hair cycle is not like the skin. The skin is 4 or 5 weeks, but for the hair, it's 6 months. So in that case, I would recommend getting also the floor stand because you could be watching TV or relaxing and you could have this over you because the floor stand, you can move it in any direction. Use it for 10 minutes a day, and in 6 months, you'll see all the results and much cheaper than much expensive units because there are some masks that some hats that you put with all this laser, and they're like $2,500, $3,000, and you can get similar results with this.
Are there any side effects to red light therapy that would be negative?
Not any yet that been proven. Basically, more than 6,000 studies, and there's no negative. The only thing they found that if you get too much red light therapy, there's a moment where you stop getting benefits. And if you overdo do it, you can start getting less benefits. So, for example, if you use this on your face for 10 minutes, that would be perfect. If you did it for 20 minutes, it would be even better. but maybe after 30 minutes, the results won't be getting bigger. So that would be all. And also, for example, one interesting thing, red light therapy, it's also great for, as I mentioned, arthritis. So if someone has arthritis in their hand, in this case, they can be putting their hand close to the unit, and that will also help a lot. But no side effects really for red light.
Can red light therapy help with weight loss?
There's some studies that says that it helps with weight loss. In my case, I don't. That's not one of the benefits that I tell people that it helps with, because if it does, it's not that big. What it really helps a lot is with muscle recovery. So, for example, if you are going to go train to the gym, or if you have sore muscles, red light therapy, it's amazing for that. What actually works for preventing weight gain, it's the UV part. So if you get UV, that helps with weight loss.
Brilliant. Let's just touch on that really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I work out in the gym, I race bikes. Athleticism in my life, I know will extend the quality of my life and the longevity because of the effect.
Mm-hmm.
Red light therapy, helping with muscle recovery, helping with getting rid of soreness, giving me more energy, obviously, because of how it's touching the cells in my body, the mitochondria, and impacting that. What is the advice you would give to gym rats, people that are, you know, really pushing the limits of working out in multiple different arenas, or even professional athletes, or someone like a ballet dancer?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, and I'm not always, I'm not telling lies. For sport people, this would be, for example, great for getting the UV part, but for getting the infrared, this is a localized small unit. What I will tell somebody, for example, that's doing it professionally, try to use a full body bed with infrared, and that will really help not preventing injuries, getting better joints, recovering faster, more ATP production. So in case of sports, what would be best, it's probably to combine a unit like this that has the UV that works systemically. But for sports, it would be a full body infrared unit, what I would be recommending.
Or
And
they,
it
or they could just buy six of your units and just turn around.
yes, it will still be cheaper because, for example, the beds that I've seen in shows are from 80,000 to 120,000. So those are too expensive, but you would need to get higher exposure.
So would say, for example, I've been out training, I've been doing legs in the gym, I've been racing my bike, my thighs are really tight, I can feel the soreness, the lactic buildup has been, huge in there. What would I put the lights on my legs specifically, or could you put it on a different body part and it would then transfer the effect?
Well, basically, with red light, the best effect is when you do it exactly on the place that you want the benefit. But also, there's systemical benefits because they did an experiment where they put the light on one side of the face and not the other. And obviously, the part of the face that got exposure is where you saw the best benefits, but you also saw benefits on the other side. For example, there's a product from a friend of mine that's called the Energy Launcher, and that's a very cool looking infrared bed, and you receive the infrared from your back. But infrared, basically, if you give more energy to half your body, that also helps energy with the rest of the body. But yes, what you could do, for example, in your case, it would be more practical to get the floor stand. And for example, you can do it on one leg, then you can do it in another. So this will help with full body, but it all obviously will take more time because you would need to be moving it or 88 units, as you said.
No, it's fantastic. So the takeaway for me is sun is critical. We can't always have access to the sun, whether it's because of Mother Nature or because of our business, our job, our hours. The effect is dynamic on our happiness, on our health, on our energy levels, even on our skin, the way our skin looks. And if there's an interest in improving your own health, then they should be looking at your device for a home use. Offices that have thousands of workers in there that are not maybe being as productive they can, having that on their desk will help bring an energy and a focus, clarity to their work and make them happier, make a happier environment. I think the whole world needs it right now. And then it's great for yourself. It's fantastic as a gift to somebody that you want to turn around, maybe, certain times of the year, birthday gifts, because it's affected them not just in that moment, but for their whole life. And ultimately, if you have a partner that maybe doesn't have as high a libido or ability to perform, that if we start getting a bunch of messages from older ladies saying that their husbands won't leave them alone and that they're always waking up every morning ready to go for the day, if you know what I mean, then that's the effect as well. So Guti, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, your expertise, for creating something that, like you said, was created to help yourself and then had this dynamic effect from your own results. I'm a huge believer that the greatest results come from fixing a problem, not from creating a product.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
It's getting back to nature, and thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. And I will see you at another show, I'm sure, coming up sometime soon.
Yes, see you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
Working in support of the global war on terror. So anywhere in the world that the United States was showing up to hunt bad guys or do what they had to do, they'd have us. The cartels came up, and the partner, the guy I was sitting with, started talking about how Colombia is so bad with their drugs, and she just shook her head and she says, "No, Colombia does not have a drug problem. America has a consumption problem. We find the market for America. We don't have a drug problem." So it clicked in my head. I'm thinking, and then it became more criminal, hurting people, killing people, oppressing people. Now with fentanyl coming in from an enemy of the state, enemy of the United States of America, fentanyl is a chemical derivative, that's it. And they bring that in the United States. It's killing tens of thousands monthly in the United States. And the general public doesn't even, this is freedom of religion, freedom of a lot of things. You have to stop, learn the ways of the country you're in. So I believe they would have been murdered because some were being murdered while we were evacuating them. Set on fire, killed, because I thought the Taliban came in and raped her and killed her. And just, can you please just get her body and bring it back? When I fly in, I'll take care of her. And I had this connection with this young girl. And one of the guys in that group looks out the window and he sees the Taliban physically dragging this girl across the courtyard. And they're on a second story. He goes through the window. The rest of them go through the window. They confront the Taliban. They get